be able to maintain such. And I think this is where we need a stronger partnership between the subnationals and the federal.
Welcome back. Tokunbo Afikuyomi Jr., the editor-in-chief at Stears Business, is joining me right now virtually. Hello, Tokunbo. Good to see you. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Nancy. Nice to see you too. Thank you for having me.
How are you? We are connecting virtually, so let's talk about everything is gone digital now. The Naira will soon go digital. at the meeting, at the May MPC meeting, the governor of the central bank hinted at the digitization of Naira and Kobo, because I'm made to understand that we still have Kobo, but I've not seen Kobo in many years. What's your first word on that, especially when you heard that announcement? And I think, was it last week again, there was a bankers committee meeting that the bank CEOs also spoke about it and all of the proposal. So what's your first word on that?
Yes, I know. Interesting thing you said about the Kobo, first of all. I think there are only about 30 million pieces of 1 Kobo coins. Meanwhile, there are around 1.5 billion 1,000 Naira notes. So yeah, the Kobo is definitely not as popular as Naira these days. But
When
so
last did you
digital
see the
currency,
Kobo? When last?
me personally, about maybe 7 years.
I've not seen the Kobo in a long time. It's longer than that.
But
I
the
think
Kobo
it's
will still
something we
exist.
should have and put it in our houses, create like a mini museum so that we can show our children's children in years to come that
Very
this used to be a currency, or it's still a currency. I think I'll take
well,
it up with
very
the CBN.
Well, very soon we might be doing that for notes as
Mm,
well,
mm.
with the way this conversation is going. So I guess my first reaction to that was it's good news. So, the way I think about it, the Naira is a product. The same way you have, cars and, food, the Naira currency itself is a product. And people only need or use that product for a certain use. In the Naira's case, is to buy goods and services. So this is think of this as an evolution or an improvement of the Naira product. This is where around 80% of central banks around the world are currently doing research on how to develop a digital currency. So it's good to see that our central bank is also on board with following that current trend.
What is the difference between a digital currency, or what's the difference, or what are the differences between a digital, a virtual, an electronic, or a cryptocurrency? Or what other electronic, or what other name is there? Different virtual, electronic, cryptocurrency.
Yeah, very good question. Because usually when we normally have this conversation about digital currency, the first question people ask is, but my debit card and my account balance on my app, that's already digital. What does a new digital currency actually mean? So in effect, that's true. So already we are doing electronic payments in the world. What a digital currency is a currency whereby there's absolutely no way of accessing it physically. So there's no ATM withdrawal. This is going to be a currency that only exists online. So you can only access it from a computer or a mobile phone. It doesn't have to be a smartphone as well. It can be accessed through communication as well. So that's one important thing to highlight. The difference between digital currencies and cryptocurrencies. So by definition, all cryptocurrencies are digital currencies. But cryptocurrencies, if you think of them as again like products, they have different use cases. So for example, Bitcoin is more thought of something like digital gold, where people are using it as an asset, as opposed to being thought of as money, right? You have other, there are 10,000 different cryptocurrencies, and each of them has a different use case. Again, each of them is like a different product. Now, you also have products or cryptocurrencies that are being used as currencies, as in to replace fiat currencies. For example, they're normally known as stable coins, right? So you have to make that distinction between cryptocurrencies, which have different use cases. And as part of that cryptocurrency bucket, there are some cryptocurrencies that are being marketed, or the use case is a digital currency. Now, central banks are now developing their own digital currencies. And that is what we are talking about on this show, and what the central bank is talking about, where the central bank is the one that will create the digital currencies and disperse it to the population, as opposed to the cryptocurrencies we've seen so far, where it has been individual or private companies that have created those digital currencies or cryptocurrencies.
I like the part where you said that, of course, we can, perhaps when the CBN comes up with this, we should be able to access it on our mobile phones, on our pads, and on our computers. And perhaps we may not need, I hope they're also looking into that, we may not need an online connection to get that for the issue of financial inclusion, to get more people financially included. I hope we'll have time to get into that. But do you think that the Central Bank of Nigeria is on the same wavelength with some other countries? Like China also launched their digital currency, I think in April, or is it May? Also, where you see the digital yuan on their mobile phone. So do you think that the Central Bank of Nigeria is on the right track now, especially people around the world having so much discontent and not happy anymore with the way the financial system is being structured, with the centralized form of the financial system, which is controlled by central banks around the world?
Yeah, I think it's very good that you brought that up because it's important for everyone to know that this is not a Nigerian issue, it's a global issue, right? Cryptocurrencies were born, and specifically Bitcoin was born after the financial crisis of 2008, where, by default of a few investment banks who created some toxic assets, the financial sector, some significantly dropped. But not only did the financial sector lose out, but the world and the economies themselves also fell. So people lost jobs, and so there's a lot of discontent in the world regarding the current financial structure, the current financial system, and so that was why, and that was the backdrop in which cryptocurrencies were born, to create these decentralized cryptocurrencies, where we can have a more decentralized market that didn't depend on these banks or these central banks. Now with the CBN, and other central banks really, what they are doing is basically having a piece of the cake of this new evolution of money. Because to notice that what is happening in this space is an evolution in money. We're talking about kobo and coins. Before that, we were using shells as money. This new digital currency is a new evolution in this space, and so central banks have no choice but to jump on the bandwagon, and also develop their own currencies, because a world where people are using these cryptocurrencies and other digital coins and is not controlled or influenced by the government is a very scary world for governments. It means they will have less influence over what people are doing in the economy if people are using other currencies that are not controlled by them. And so the central bank is on the right track in terms of developing its own product. And it's a good opportunity for it to also improve the Naira as a product. Give the Naira, digital Naira, something that makes people want the Naira. Because at the moment, as you know, people are always chasing dollars instead of Naira. So it's a good opportunity to actually develop a very strong digital product, a digital Naira.
Talks, okay, Tokunbo. I call you Talks off the camera and it's come out now. um, let's take a look at the influence, especially the wave around digital currencies around the world. We talked about earlier China. Some other countries are mulling a digital currency. In fact, the US too, especially when China came out with its digital yuan. The US did say that it will be looking into all of that, because it's also talking about the sovereignty, it's talking about national security issues. With Nigeria now planning to join the bandwagon and some other countries, how do you think that this will influence the world's reserve currency, which is the United States dollar, America's influence, power? Of course, we know, I think the United States, one of the powers it has is because of the greenback, is accepted everywhere, and that I think started from World War II. So how do you think that the wave which we're seeing right now around countries, and especially even poor countries, have been advised to do that? Do you see the United States perhaps coming on board with that, and will it be a threat to the US dollar, and how would it affect us as a frontier market?
These are very, very, very important and big points you're making. So, the reason why China is actually developing this digital yuan or e-yuan very quickly is because it sees this as an opportunity to actually remove or reduce America's influence in the financial market. So, China believes that if they can create a digital currency, which the world is moving towards, if they can create a digital currency that is in high demand and people use for different advantages. Because the thing about the digital currencies is that it comes with advantages. So, for example, sending money across borders will be cheaper and faster. You don't need to use all these settlements that take long to send money across. So, there are advantages to this new digital currency. And so, China is hoping that if they can develop it fast enough and increase its adoption faster than the US can, then they can take a bit of that market share of the US's hold over the reserve currency as in the world. So that's a very important point. And I think it's clear that what is going to happen is that as more countries develop these digital currencies, the US's influence as the reserve currency will see a reduction. The only way the US can come against that is if they develop a new digital dollar. Again, like I said at the beginning of this show, think of these things as products. If the US can make a digital currency that's a better product still than what other countries are able to produce, even faster, then the US can still keep that crown of being the reserve currency, even in a world where it's digital. So it depends on who makes the best product. And for frontier markets like Nigeria, it's a good opportunity for us, again, like I said, to develop something that can improve and enhance international trade. At the moment, trade, or doing business, foreign businesses doing activities in Nigeria is difficult because of all the FX restrictions and the dollar and the naira, and we're looking at the exchange rate market just now. This is another opportunity to revamp that system so that the naira is a more in demand product, and so that is something that can make the economy a lot more stable.
Perhaps the naira becoming a demand product even across our neighboring countries, because sometimes when you go to other West African countries, they demand the naira even more than their own currency. For example, the Sierra Leone, I think we're talking of inflation. Inflation has eaten that country's currency. In fact, when you go to Sierra Leone, they prefer to take the naira from you. So perhaps if the CBN can do this, it would help strengthen the naira if some of our neighboring countries will want that. I don't want to go into their sovereignty issues. But if you take a look at the advantage of having a digital naira, well, let me say digital naira and kobo, because kobo is still part of our money. We've discarded it, Having a digital currency, perhaps it would also lessen, do you think it will lessen the amount we use in printing paper naira and, paper or fiat currency? Because we spent, I think, over 75 billion naira printing the naira.
Yes, for sure. I think if we're able to increase the adoption of the digital currency, then we'll start to see, a much more efficient way of disbursing currency into the market. So, for example, like you said, money printing reduces. But the other thing as well is that with a digital currency, the central bank is able to directly engage with the people. So think of it this way: it's almost like the other advantage of having digital currency is that you can remove intermediaries like commercial banks. So the CBN can create a wallet or a CBN account where me or you can go directly, and get dollars, or I said dollars, get naira, a digital naira directly from the CBN. And I'm basically an account holder of the Central Bank of Nigeria as opposed to any other commercial bank. Now that creates a lot more efficient market. You remove things like settlement, all these charges that banks,
what will
charge.
happen to the banks? Will the banks now be just like our store value? I don't think the banks will be happy hearing this. You want them to go out of business. Or we're just like, okay, we'll take from here and we'll go and store there or something. Because
it depends.
You understand?
It depends on what model Nigeria decides to go to. There are different models. So with digital currency, there's a model where you can still have some commercial banks doing some things, right? But not everything like we see today. So remember that the whole point of these, cryptocurrencies and digital currencies was to remove, some of that centralization. And so even though these currencies that are being developed by central banks will be centralized, there's an ability to just have a direct relationship, to just disburse the coins directly to consumers. And so banks would definitely see a reduction in their influence if we move towards this world. It depends on how much that happens, depends on which model the central bank goes for. There are models where, like in China, where the banks are not as involved, or there are models where the banks are still involved in some way, but it definitely won't be like we see today.
Do you think that when the CBN launches this digital currency, it will give the Apex Bank new tools to monitor the economy and definitely the people? That's the A part of the question, because we've got to go in less than 5 minutes. The second part of the question also is that when a digitized naira is launched, do you think it would also reorder the fundamentals of finance in Nigeria?
Yeah, very good question. And the answer to the first part is yes. So central banks around the world are basically rubbing their hands together. They are wetting their lips because the digital currency gives them a lot of data. So, like I said, imagine a model where the central bank removes intermediaries, so payment services, banks, and they are able to just have bank accounts, or call it a wallet, a CBN wallet. And every single company in the country, every single individual in the country has this CBN wallet. The CBN will be able to see all information surrounding transactions and payments. And so in that world, they will have a lot of data and be able to influence the economy. Imagine it, they'll be able to see how much we're spending on different goods and services. And so when prices of things are picking up, they'll be able to see that and they'll be able to respond appropriately. So this digital currency gives them a lot of data. And so there's a lot of room and there are more tools to develop monetary policy. In fact, in China, what the People's Bank of China is doing already is having policies that are specific to different sectors or even different regions. Because when you have the data, you can say, I want people whose name starts with letter T to have a higher interest rate, and the CBN can do that. And so what China is doing is, depending on the sector that you're in, based on the information they have from the wallets, from the EU1, they will give you a different interest rate, or depending on the region you're in. So the tools are going to be a lot more than we have now.
Okay.
And on the second, is there time to answer the second question?
Yeah, if the digitized naira will change the order of the fundamentals of finance that we're seeing, and just to add to that, let me just ask this other question so that you end the volatility issues that we've been seeing about the naira in the last few years. Do you think that if we have a digital naira, would begin to see a stop or a halt of those volatility issues? Then also counterfeiting measures. Is it like a counterfeiting measure that people will not begin to print fake naira anymore? Though I've seen that trend go down, but with the digital naira, perhaps we will not see that again. So you can end
I'll take the counterfeit point. Yeah, 100% correct. All of a sudden, that will be less possible, right? The other thing as well is with the data, things like anti-money laundering and financing of terrorist activities, the CBN will be better able to do that because, again, all the information, when we have a digital currency and it's all saved online, all that information is available to the central bank. And so they are better able to capture all these illicit financial flows. The question on volatility, it really depends on the Nigerian economy. Let's not forget that it's not the naira's fault that the currency is so volatile. It's the economy's fault. The naira is just a representation of what's happening in the economy. So the digital currency does have the ability to improve the economy in that the CBN has better monetary policy tools, and if we develop a good product that is in demand from people and we improve stuff like international trade, then through that means a better economy can emerge, and so volatility will reduce. But ultimately, the naira is just a representation, and even the digital naira will just be the representation of the economy. So it all depends on what happens there.
So do you see it reordering the financial landscape?
For sure. I think it's going to be a major shakeup. I think it's going to be a major shakeup. It will change the winners and losers. For example, payment companies, the fintech industry, it might be a plus or a minus because for the digital currency, what central banks are thinking is creating a system that is more the open banking area. So the way this helps financial inclusion is not just because you can open an account directly with the CBN, but the CBN will create a system where other fintechs and other institutions are talking to each other more directly through the CBN. So someone on low income opens an account with the CBN very easily, and they have access by doing KYC with the CBN, know your customer details with the CBN. They have access to other fintech and other financial products very easily via the CBN. So that's why financial inclusion is being talked about in this space. So it will be a major shakeup, and it will reorder the winners and losers.
Okay, let's see. Perhaps we can't wait for that shakeup. You'll be ready to accept it, isn't it? Of course, we won't have any choice because it's a legal tender. I won't have a choice.
Indeed.
Thank you very much, Tokunbo, for joining us today.
Thank you, Nancy.
All right, I've been